Hi, I'm Dr. Lynn Fox. I'm honored to be the chair of the Drug Awareness Program here in San Rafael. We are so excited to have Bob Doyle as our Camarena Award winner this year. And now, here he is to tell his own story.
Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Carl Wilson Lohr, and with us today is Sheriff Robert Doyle, retired. He's the recipient of this year's Camarena Award from the Elks Club here in San Rafael, and also regionally for the states of Hawaii and California. So welcome and congratulations on the Camarena Award this year. How does that feel?
Well, you know, I spent a good deal of my time as sheriff trying not to attract attention to myself. So when I first heard about the award, I was a little uncomfortable. However, you know, to receive the award named after someone who gave his life, you know, and what he really believed in, you know, and when any of us enter law enforcement, we never think that you're going to give up your life, like going in the military where that could happen. And then I was also struck by the similarities in our life. Enrique Camarena and I were born the same year. He's 6 days older than me.
Wow, that's very close.
I won't say what year. We both served in the military during the Vietnam conflict. He started his career with the Imperial County Sheriff's Office, I with Marin, and stayed. And then he went to become a DEA agent. So to me, it's an honor to receive the award, and it would have been an honor just to be nominated, even if I didn't win. So
thank you. It's quite remarkable. The Elks have kept his name alive, really, these almost 40 years now, because it was 1985 that as a DEA agent he was kidnapped and brutally murdered in Guadalajara, Mexico. We'll be talking a little bit more about him in a moment. But first, sir, I'd like to read and I had to put it on paper because your accomplishments are many, and our audience needs to know a little bit about you as far as your career. So if you'll indulge me.
Sure.
Marin County Sheriff Deputy for 26 years, followed by an additional 26 years as the elected Sheriff of Marin County. It's about a 53-year career to round it off. And instrumental in creating the Marin County Major Crimes Task Force, interacting with many different agencies, the CHP, the DEA, interdicting illicit drugs in our communities.
Correct.
And statewide.
Right, and other local law enforcement agencies.
Co-founder of the Marin County Schools Law Enforcement Partnership with Mary Jane Burke, our retired superintendent of schools. She wrote of you a loyal friend and true partner to Marin's public and private schools. You also were instrumental in helping to establish school resource officers, which I find intriguing. Those are uniformed officers that relate to that are actually on the campuses.
Yes.
Quite an opportunity for students to know and trust the police.
Yes, I believe so, yes.
Yeah. Trainings for students and teachers and staff and parents. One that caught my eye was especially about gang awareness and prevention. A leader and a vocal supporter of the Marin County Sheriff Youth Academy. Mm-hmm. And I also would point out the Jeanette Prandy Children's Center, a place where young children can safely share their experiences.
Correct. It's a safe kind of haven and some place where they could be comfortable in familiar surroundings, as opposed to being brought to a police station, a room that's used for interrogation. That was named after Jeanette, because Jeanette was a lifelong juvenile officer known throughout the community. It was fittingly named after her, but there were a lot of people that were instrumental in forming that. Tradespeople, you know, did things for no cost, and people supplied materials at no cost because it was not county funded. So,
truly a community effort.
Yes, yes.
And you were one of the leaders in
I was one of the people that participated in certainly pushing and forming that and keeping it going. you know, by getting police departments to contribute yearly, and we contributed yearly, as did the district attorney, to keep it going in the operating costs, because, as I said, it wasn't something that was funded by the county.
I'll take the moment to read this because I got this from the Giving Marin website describing the center. It says the Jeanette Prandy Children's Center provides children who have been sexually abused or suffered other forms of abuse a safe environment in which they can be interviewed.
And the other piece of that was there was really emphasis on training investigators how to conduct these interviews. So, you know, so that also served the purpose. There was a lot of training that went into that to make that a successful program.
Thank you. Thank you for your involvement. And that continues today, that center.
Yes, yes.
And it's a model for other centers across the state, across the nation, really.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fabulous. This is a picture of Enrique Camarena in Mexico. He innovated. He hired a helicopter pilot and discovered a huge marijuana plantation. From the DEA website, $2.5 billion a year in 1985, quite a bit more, maybe 3 times that much in today's dollars. And subsequently, a few months later, he was kidnapped, as was the helicopter pilot, and they were brutally assassinated. Do you remember that time specifically in 1985?
You know, generally I do, not specifically. I mean, I never. I have to say I managed and directed narcotics units, but I never worked in narcotics myself.
Right.
But I do generally remember that time as being a takeoff of drugs from Mexico being regularly transported into the United States at the border.
There was a national outrage at his death. I have this book here written by Elaine Shannon, Desperados is the title of it, about Enrique Camarena. And I'd like to read just a paragraph from her foreword to the book. It's really not so much about him, but it kind of sets up something that we've seen in our society. And she writes, in 1968, I was 21 years of age. That was the year marijuana came to town. Pot smoking was not taken lightly at first because the police had a simple, harsh response. Anybody caught with a joint was busted, strip searched, and likely to be sentenced to months, even years in jail. Within 2 years, the criminal justice system had clogged and broken down. Even in the conservative South, the smell of marijuana wafted through the stadiums during rock concerts. So we're talking about 1968, 1970. Certainly, marijuana's impact on our society has only increased because now it's legalized in so many places. During your career, have you seen dramatic change in how marijuana is perceived?
Well, yeah. I mean, first the state of California legalized municipal marijuana, and then marijuana in general. And I mean, to me, I always looked upon it, you know, especially in Marin, about how hypocritical people were. When municipal marijuana was legalized, everybody thought it was a great idea as long as it was in someone else's neighborhood. And I happened to be privy to the maps that were established where there could be municipal marijuana, and after legislators saw that, a lot of those sites disappeared, even though those same legislators supported municipal marijuana. And then with the legalization of marijuana, we still continue to get calls about, my neighbor's growing marijuana. Well, the law says your neighbor can have 12 plants. And so I always found it hypocritical that people, you know, don't consider the impact it has on people, the impact it has on the community, and then the environmental impacts. I mean, if you've ever been to the scene of an illegal grow or a meth lab and see what it does to the environment, and so
And what do you mean by that?
Well, I mean the cleanup. I mean, for instance, when they're growing marijuana, they typically do it near water and streams, and they'll wash and clean in the stream and you know, and foul that. and or meth with ether and the chemicals that are used. They just
Right.
dump the stuff on the ground. And,
Right.
and I remember one meth lab on the Silvera property was $300,000 or $400,000.
Wow.
To clean up. So people, I think that, it's easy to go to the ballot box and say this is no big deal, but they don't think about those impacts that I just mentioned.
It's hard to go back too.
Well, it's not. We won't go back.
Right.
I mean, and I find in dealing with people, and my experience is that especially in Marin, that people don't have a whole lot of knowledge, because if they've never been victimized, all they do is read about it in the paper and think that, well, my house is not going to be burglarized, or my wife's not going to be assaulted. But when it happens, it can happen to anyone.
Right.
And so that's what it's always bothered me about people, is that they don't consider they just think, well, marijuana's not a big deal, and who cares, but the impact that it has on all of us goes unnoticed.
There's a big impact, and a lot of it unseen.
Of course, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. And again, it's, I know people. I think it'd be fair to say there's nobody that doesn't know somebody that smokes marijuana
Of
or
course.
enjoys that. And what we're talking about is being in the hands of children or misused in a way.
Sure.
Like in my personal experiences in life, I've even heard people say that they used to blow marijuana smoke into their infant child to get it to go to sleep at night.
Oh my God.
I was surprised when I did a little bit of research online, and I didn't have to look far or wide, but actually I found an article I came across in the Atlantic magazine, and it was talking about North Carolina and the ability to make THC-laden products legally for shipment anywhere in the country, because they're made out of hemp.
Right.
And as I understand it, the compounds in the hemp plant can be refined and chemically altered and distilled, essentially, much like you'd make a brandy or a whiskey,
Right.
to create a very potent product, which can be shipped anywhere, I guess, in the U.S. I have a picture here of some of these things you can order. Basically, just order them online. One of the companies I saw had a check this box if you're over 21 years of age.
Oh, right, yeah,
but
yeah.
What does
you
that
can go
mean?
online
if you have a credit
hemp.
card, you can buy things.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
You go online, like for hemp, and for relaxation or sleep,
Right.
or to ease all of your body pain, and it'll say, "Are you 18 years old?"
Exactly. All you have to do is click the box,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
In the task force that was responsible for interdicting nowadays one of our very dangerous narcotics, which is the fentanyl and the fake prescription pills and that
Right.
sort of thing. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, the task force, it's general in the sense that it's narcotic enforcement,
Right.
and unfortunately, people in Marin don't seem to think it's as a big a problem as it is. In no way was the unit formed to break a drug cartel or some international, trafficking, but it is to monitor what's going on in Marin, and so that has been a focus, is especially, the OxyContin prescription medication, and people having that shouldn't have it, and then also the fentanyl. And the reason the fentanyl is so dangerous is that it gets laced with other drugs, and people don't know what they're consuming.
Or it's purported to be something.
It's purported to be something different, and there's probably some, in some instances where people are pushing the envelope and taking more and more and more each time they, ingest fentanyl.
Right.
But I don't think people are taking it to die. They're not taking it to commit suicide.
Correct.
And I think that's what makes it so hard. And I know the California Police Officer Standard Training put out a video about how law enforcement needs to be careful, because you can touch it and not even know.
That's right.
And it shows instances where police officers bring it home because
That's
it gets
right.
on their clothes.
Isn't that amazing?
And so that has become an issue, and again, another synthetic drug.
I'm going to show this picture to our audience. Of course, I have a picture here of a pencil tip, just a pencil tip, the tip of a pencil, and that's how much fentanyl it takes to kill somebody.
Exactly. Yeah.
A tiny, small amount.
Yeah.
And as you say, you could be on the job and pick it up and bring it home with you and not even know.
Well, look at the, the unsuspecting drug user. I mean, of course, most people say, I don't have any sympathy for that person.
Right.
But the unsuspecting person, and it gets laced with something else, and they don't even know it. So I mean, I've never been in that state of mind, but I can't imagine, or they should imagine, buying something from someone they don't know.
Right.
And again, I'm not saying that's okay.
Of course.
And how you could, ingest something thinking, well, I wonder if it's going to work out for me today.
Yeah.
So
I've found the DEA website to be quite instructive, because some of the pills they manufacture illicit, drug labs in Mexico and elsewhere, can look more polished than the real thing.
Yeah. Or well, some of them it looked exactly like the product that you'd buy in the store.
Wow.
A lot of fentanyl deaths and overdoses, people don't even know what they've taken.
Yeah. I found this also on the DEA website, that their laboratory testing indicates 7 out of 10 pills that they test contain lethal doses of fentanyl.
I'm not surprised.
It's astonishing. So
Right.
a high school person at a party, or going
Exactly.
to a concert, or falling under peer pressure to go along,
Exactly.
could lose their life.
Exactly.
That's why the empty chair is here.
Sure.
This chair is here for people that have lost a loved one, to remember that loved one, the missing man formation,
Right.
a glass of water and an empty chair for loved ones we've lost tragically.
Well, and I think people don't realize the power of that. And I once had a very prominent legislator tell me that had a cocaine issue, and said the reason I stand, for, drug rehab and spending lots of money in that is because there isn't a day that doesn't go by when I wake up that I want to pack my nose.
Wow.
And I don't think people, I think the average Joe doesn't realize how powerful, the addiction process is, and it's so easy to just stop, or get some methadone, or go home, and I mean, it's a powerful thing. And
now that speaks directly to your work with the drug court, adult drug court, and with programs that help people upon release from prison
right.
have some kind of a safe place to land. Do you have personal experience with those programs?
Well, I don't have personal experience. I mean, I was, proponent of drug court and followed it, but I wasn't involved in the program. But I know that there's a tail on everyone,
right? And
there's a carrot and a stick, and it's like this is the program. This is what you have to adhere to, or else you're incarcerated again. So I'm not.
I know that the probation department
Yeah,
has an
the
annual.
probation department would be more involved in that, as would the district attorney's office.
Very good,
So, yeah.
very good. We have influences in our life that both motivate us to stay away from drugs, and hopefully we have role models that we can aspire to be like, who abstain from drugs and alcohol. Do you find, in your interaction with children in our communities, do you find that that's a powerful force, greater than peer pressure?
I think it is. We had a DARE program for a long time, even into the time when it was being criticized. The Just Say No, where people were laughing about.
And the DARE, the acronym means?
Well, it's drug awareness. But what we found was important is having that communicated by peace officers, and really trying to drive home the point that we're just like your mother and father, and we're just like the people in your community that you shouldn't be afraid of and that you should listen to. And I thought it was very effective. Now, a lot of outside forces did not. Typically, parents thought that it was. But I thought it was very impactful, because they got to meet police in this informal setting, which I never got to do that when I was a kid. I mean, the only time you saw a peace officer on campus is that there was trouble.
Right.
And so we wanted to take that away.
Right.
And we'll talk about the school resource officer. But that was what we were trying to impart, is that, don't be afraid of police.
Right.
That they're normal people, and it's someone you could go to and talk to if you had an issue, or if you wanted to talk to them about a friend that had an issue that was afraid to. And so that we believe it was important. And same thing with school resource officers. Ours was a little bit more unique than San Rafael, Novato, and Central Marin, because we had like 25 or 26 schools spread throughout the unincorporated area, and we only had 2 school resource officers. They were there, as a resource, to school officials and kids. We even minimized their looking presence, where they would wear khakis and a polo shirt, and
it's so important for a child to have a safe adult to ask a question.
Well, exactly. And sometimes people say, well, but you go on the campus with a gun. Well, that's policemen carry guns.
Sure.
So get over that.
Sure.
So if there was a school, and there was, it said, they can't come on campus with it, then we're not coming. Sorry. There was a lot of attack on that by people saying, I'll use the resources to do something else. And we'd say, well, why don't you talk to the schools? We're going to continue to do this. The school wants it, the parents want it. And we think this is good. The people in our community see police officers all the time, and they're saying, "Well, God, he's got to walk. The poor kid's got to walk by to get into school." Well, if you're going to buy an ice cream on Main Street, you might have to walk by a police. So this whole dramatic, effect that somehow, that's traumatic on children is BS.
People react emotionally to things that they're not really.
They
don't really
exactly.
understand.
You and I talked about it off camera. The people could get to sit in their, easy chair and make these bold pronouncements, and they don't have to be accountable or responsible, but yet we do, and they would criticize everything that we did if they didn't like it.
Yeah.
Not that it was wrong, but if they didn't like it. So.
Right. Thank you, Retired Sheriff Doyle, for bringing that up, because I would call it a special courage to be a leader in today's world, where you have to make decisions in the moment, and then we live in a culture now that seems that wants to criticize, blame, and dissect every decision along the way. Any advice you could give someone in leadership, either in law enforcement or in our?
Well, I tried to block it, because.
By block it, you mean block the static?
Yeah, and filter, because one of my mentors when I became sheriff was Gary Giacomini, who was a supervisor. And he would always say, hey, law enforcement is really well respected. Stick to law enforcement. Don't get involved in politics. And then some people that I knew said, broaden your circle. If you just sort of hang out with your friends, they're going to tell you what you want to hear. And so get a diversity of opinion. So I always try to listen to people, but people who just made noise and wanted to be ugly, I would block that, because I ultimately had the responsibility, and I had a great staff, and we would make decisions based on what we thought was really necessary and important and right for everybody, and instead of second guessing. And I was telling you, one of the joys of being in an elected position is that there were some issues that I'm sure the legislative bodies would have loved to influence me, but I didn't think that was in the best interest of the general public. And so I said, hey, it's my call. I'll be responsible for that, and I'll be accountable.
I thought of asking you this question. I don't know if it'll make sense, but I'll give it a shot. On a 1 to 10 scale, with no idea whatsoever, oblivious, never even think about it, to really kind of appreciate over here on 10, 1 to 10 scale, how do you perceive the general public understands what police work is?
I would say somewhere in the middle, 5 or 6.
Okay.
I think that that would be my guess. People that have never been victimized and generally just busy. I don't think it's that they don't support police, but I don't think they understand. Always. What goes into that. Just how hard it is today. People are watching you, you're away from your family, long hours, holidays. I think in Marin, there's general support for law enforcement, but I don't know that translates into they know exactly how hard the job is.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I know that you brought some things to show us today that are illustrations of your career and your life a little bit. Hold up that one about your high school picture there.
Handsome guy.
Handsome guy. I should have brought mine. What did life look like that last year of high school? You certainly didn't know you were.
Our high school years were a bit of a goof off. I didn't get in trouble, but I just didn't take high school very seriously. And all of my friends, were getting drafted, so I decided to join the Army and at least have some control over part of the enlistment.
And for those who have never experienced it, I registered for the draft as well and had a deferment, but times were different then.
Right, and so I led just a normal middle class life. I enjoyed my youth.
How'd you come to law enforcement as a career?
What happened is I got out of the military. Law enforcement was hiring, and so I just thought, well, hey, I'll do that, for a while. And so the first agency to offer me employment was the Marin County Sheriff's Office.
Uh-huh.
And so I came to work in November 1st, 1969.
So this is your last?
This is my last
day in office?
Well, my last official photo
yes.
as sheriff, which is a little bit different than my first one 26 and a half years before that.
Yep.
But nonetheless, that was my last photo.
2.5 years ago, something.
Yes.
Yeah. I have something special to play for you, and we'll end on this one. See if I can bring it up.
Hello, everyone. I am Enrique Camarena, and I am the oldest son of Enrique Camarena, the drug agent who was murdered in 1985. My father's legacy continues on, thankfully, and with a lot of humility, my family welcomes everybody continuing the fight to prevent drug abuse in this country. And I want to congratulate Sheriff Doyle. Sheriff Doyle has been very active in the community to prevent drug abuse. And I just think it's imperative that we continue to show young people the dangers of drug abuse. And to Sheriff Doyle, again, congratulations. I hope that someday our paths may cross in person. Again, congratulations.
It was almost arranged that he'd be with us today on Zoom, but he couldn't make it.
Okay.
But very special.
Very special, yes, it is.
Retired Sheriff Robert Doyle.
Okay.
It's just been a pleasure to have you with us today. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.